need more power. It can't be done. Can't do that. Gotta catch my breath. That's not happening. That's not happening. I can't do that. Gotta catch my breath. Not possible. Not possible. Not right now. No.
Alrighty, as you guys saw, so that's how my sorcerer has been improved at pretty much like a few levels above my level. We were doing about 85 or 86, I think. I'm only level 69. It's getting slowly but surely. I'm pretty sure it can push farther and farther than that because the crowd control and the damages just keep getting better. Gonna go over a few changes that I made. I changed pretty much on the skill tree. We dropped pretty much Blaze Storm, and we pick up Bleeding Edge. We turn it into fire damage, just to make sure that it's an elemental. We also picked our 5th skill. We picked Wind of Ishmir to make sure that it gives us an stunt, and also it gives us like an increased damage in the area of effect. So whenever you land, you pick up damage, and you get buffed from hitting multiple enemies. Blizzard still pretty much the strong part of the build, where you just go for the area over time or damage over time to make it into the blizzard. Everything else to play around with it however you want, however it fits your gear. Then, as you saw me using Church just to go across the map faster, and we use Embers just to buff everything else, because it gives us a fire buff, and we are building on element. Now I'm going to show you guys my gear. So the gear part, last time I showed you guys onto that I was using the Wolcen Steel Sword, and I told you that was not the ideal sword for the build because although it gives you 30% fire damage and physical damage with ferocity, it's good stats, and it gives about 190 for a one-handed sword. So from 124 to 190 is like really good as far as the damage of melee damage. But since we're doing elemental and mostly like spell damage, doesn't really affect us much in there. So that's where we pick this dagger right here. It gives us fire and lightning damage, not very much, but what we after is that 23% critical hit damage, which is going to increase the overall crit damage. So we're doing a ton of crit, as you saw on there. And also by having those 3 slots of gems, we were able to put roughly 35% on spell and 20% on regular damage across the board. The gear is mostly set around pretty much the basic is mostly getting the all resistance to mitigate damage, and then trying to get like the regular damage improvement, like 15% damage, 20% damage. Some elemental damage, if possible, couldn't work as well. So, for example, my belt is elemental damage and spell damage. Doesn't necessarily have to be damage, but I mean, if you get damage, it's better because they will buff also the rend from the bleeding edge. But it's not a necessity. It's mostly on the elemental part. Your offhand, pretty much I went for spell, life, leech from spells, and about 100, pretty much like the elemental stat alignment, which is what it allows you to proc more freezing over time. So if you look on the spell down here, alignment, it says freezing chance about 33.5%. With everything else, once you start proccing more your abilities and whatnot, then this goes up a little bit more to get a higher chance to proccing. So the other part that I was going to mention is that you should look for pretty much like cooldown reduction. So 21% cooldown reduction for skills. That's great. I have it on both my helmet and my pants over here. Pretty much on my chest as well. So my legs, chest, and helmet has cooldown reduction. Pretty much my hands and shoulders. I think one of the shoulders have the rage and will power cost reduction. So like I don't spend so much rage in this 3 super high cost spells, so kind of like cuts the expense a little bit, so you can cast multiple times and go back and forth. Offhand gems, I put transfer time reduction. I can upgrade those gems. Those are probably tier 5 or 6. I'm up to tier 9, I believe now. Yep, tier 9 gems. So I can upgrade those to tier 9 and get a little better transfer time reduction. So the pretty much the rage and willpower goes back and forth a little faster. So about the points distribution here is based on the percentage. So I will keep about 45% on the critical chance, about roughly 10, above 10%. 10% is fine, 15% is great. If you get to 20%, that's awesome. But 10% for the alignment, so you can get a much easier freezing on, or more easier pretty much the ailments on Wolcen works as like the procs of like how you freeze your target or how you cause bleeding or damage over time on your target. The casting speed and the attack speed doesn't really affect me, because we pretty much do an all instant cast. It doesn't really have to be super fast. It's it's pretty much a bulk of damage. And I'm gonna go over my passive skill. We modify a ton of that from the last video. We dropped the see from afar, or stay from afar. We dropped that. We also dropped stay from afar, and we dropped. Okay. So we dropped the Branded Burst and we dropped the Blessed Silver. So instead, we went up here and picked pretty much the tracking for the cold-blooded points. You build up blood points as long as you're in combat. It builds up points. You get about 10 points for 6% damage per point. That's as far as like as long as you don't take hit. So as long as you're not taking any hit, it's building up damage. So just if you stay from far up, you're just gonna do wrecking damage. We kept it the same court where we got these the alignment status chance, we got the dodge chance, we got critical chance, and we got the critical damage. But by picking this up here, it allows me to pick up 14 on each side of critical damage, so that's about 28%. And also it gives me frost damage along the way. It's about 50% frost damage around here. On the way down, I pick a few other things, like for example 25% damage if I'm at least 6 meters away from all targets. So if I'm like away from all targets, I'm dealing 25% more damage. That's like for the engine, for kind of like the open up as you've done in the beginning. I picked the dire judger because kind of like a safety sort of thing, as you saw. Like if you get a big hit, it allows you to heal over time. And since we got a ton of like with the Feast for the Crowds, give us global life leech and more leech, so from the spells and attacks. And bleeding edge also give us leech and heal us, so that kind of like mitigates you from dying if you get hit really hard. But it's not very an issue because your blizzard is constantly gonna freeze your target. So as long as you're spamming that blizzard in it, and you're pretty much like you control with your so your anomaly is gonna pull all targets, and then your blizzard is gonna freeze them and deal damage, and then you're just gonna create more damage with Winged Smear, and then just knock it all out with Bleeding Edge if needed to be. But for the most part, your damage comes from the blizzard itself and the anomaly. We also picked up 25 damage to enemies that have impairment movement. So if they're frozen, they're taking more damage. And also we picked up the 20% freeze chance score for frost damage, and we came and pick up 2% damage per 100 rage points that we have on spend. And that's why I'm not picking up Furious Appetite, because I don't want to build up rage. I want to build up willpower, because as you see, we open consuming willpower, and it all turns into rage and increases my damage on my spells. So as you see over here, you see how it's dropping as rage is coming down, but as rage is building up, my damage is going up as well with the rage. So along this way, we came and picked up fire damage as well. So we picked about, I will say about 40% fire damage. We got pretty much the 4% damage for each enemy that's within 4 meters. So that way, when you use Wing of Ishmir and you jump into that crowded, pretty much bunch of enemies piled up inside of your anomaly there. So once you jump inside of anomaly, then you get that insane buff from all the enemies being close to you. On there, we picked up 10% to all elemental damage, and then we picked up about 15% lightning, frost, and fire damage. So that kind of like it improves everything, all the elements. This is very important. The ancient Feebler, or however you pronounce that, with the accords, because as you see here, when you cast each element, gives you 1 with increased critical chance. This one gives you damage, and I believe so this one is lightning there and frost right here. So increases the ailment stack. So frost, it buffs itself. So once you cast frost, it increases the ailment, so it increases the chances of freezing your targets. Lightning, it's a critical chance, so it increases the amount of critical damage, and fire increases the damage, bonus damage to all skills, so it's raw damage. So the fun part is, by using Amber, you get double buff, because you also get that little fire damage buff over here to the right. So now we're getting 1 to the left, 1 to the right, or since we have the extra one, so now we get 2 on the left and 1 on the right, plus the 60% on the cold-blooded points. The rage will give you more damage, and by using Wing of Ishmir gives you also a buff of where you land, plus however many enemies you hit, up to 5 enemies, increases the damage as well. Another passive that we picked that increases damage as well. I think that's as far as it goes for the passive. Now down to the mechanics is once you open up, you can go about different ways. You can charge into the battle. That way you can get the path buff to increase all resistances, just so you're kind of like a little more tanky. And then you can use Wing of Ishmir, but it's up to you. I mean, I just use that for kind of a transportation to get across the map as fast as I can, because as you can see, I can just drop the stuff and keep moving and keep dropping and just keep, keep moving and just keeping, going. That's why I turned Wing of Ishmir to consume my stamina points. Because I could really, instead of dodging, I can just use Wing of Ishmir and get out faster. If a boss is kind of trying to got me in the range of target. But that's how we go about it. And once you got the rage build up, then you can stat.
Need more power.
that is a truckload of damage in that area right there. So that's gonna be it for the update on the Elemental Mage. So far, it's doing amazing, and I'm telling you that my gear is not even the legendariest of all. It's just picking the right stats for the build. And the way you go about it is pretty much your main weapon, and you see material, elemental, and occult. Um, I will buff one. If you're focusing on physical, I will go try to get as many material damage as possible. For example, for those who wants to build up on bleeding or the rand damage on bleeding edge. I have a really nice sword here that it could work for nice bleeding for bleeding edge, but we'll see because it has also frost damage. But we'll see what the future. I think I'll just continue with this build because I love the mobility and the crowd control where I can just group up targets and just AoE them in the area and just keep moving and keep just the versatility of buffing between all the skills. It works amazing, like how they complement each other and how many buffs I get from the passives is just great. It's doing really good stuff for now. How I will go about so to start, prioritize your dodge chance and your critical chance. Then go over your critical damage. So this will be first, this will be second, third, fourth, then this could be your fifth. This is a very big damage because attack gains 30% damage from the last spell cast. So pretty much like when you about to cast Bleeding Edge, you cast Embers first. So that Bleeding Edge is gonna get 30% from the Ember as well. So that damage is gonna just go nuts. And as you see here, it goes to up to 6,200 from the base damage of 4,000. So it goes almost 2,000 points higher just from that buff. And by doing that, you get 30% more damage. So that will be your fifth. 6 is gonna be here, and from the Warlock path, you're gonna go outer to the outer rim, and you're gonna come and pick up the Cold Blood points first. As your 7th, you're gonna pick up some nice frost damage along the way, which it will buff your Blizzard, which is your main damage dealer, because it's gonna freeze targets in. This is your main damage focus. Then after that, you can pick up the far range damage. Then go over your. At that point, you're probably gonna be kind of like in the 40s or 50s, or around there. So pick up your Dire Juncture to get a little more survivability on those big boss and whatnot, just in case you get hit because you already have dodge. But just in case, just a safety precaution, just pick it up. Then the other ones is just to finish complementing like all the damage. You can pick up early on before you get to Global Life Leech. You can pick up this right here. So if you spend spell cost and Life Leech right here, you get 2%. And you don't have to go all the way out here just to get it. So if you want to play around with other things, you can just go this way and you can pick up 4% from spell damage, and that's gonna heal you through truck loader damage. Don't pick up the Faith Leech, because this will make it so that your leech healing goes to your shield. You don't want to do that. You want to keep it where your leech is going straight to your health bar, because I did a build on fully, pretty much like I have it right here, so I still have the gems in it and everything, but I did it right here, so full the force shield, and I went with the passives and everything that doubles the force shield. I think it's right here. So pretty much gives you double the amount of force shield and everything. And I wrecked like 30 some thousand force shield when I had only 15,000 health. But I don't know if there is a problem with it, a bug or whatnot. But I know that it doesn't mitigate 0 damage, and pretty much like a boss can down your entire 30k shield in 2 hits. I also saw that there was like some problem because when I cast pretty much anomaly, my whole shield went down. So I don't know if like that skill tree has like some sort of like malfunctioning with that shield, and that whole like mechanic is kind of bust. So yeah, I mean, I died a lot when I had that build because it's not viable. And I'm telling you, like I had, pretty much I have a piece of chest here that has like a tremendous amount of force shield. This guy right here is almost 4,000 force shield. As close as the one I have right now. But this one has cooldown reduction for skills that I need. I'm trying to find another one that has all resistance to change it, but I need that cooldown for skills. That way, like, anomaly doesn't go over 8 or 9 seconds. We could easily go to like 11 seconds, and that's just not gonna be good because you're not gonna have the time. You know what I mean? Like, you want that roughly 6 to 7 seconds max, so that way you get the rotation of the casting. The dagger, trying to get the pretty much like as far as you get a socket for gems and get a triple gems on it. I had damage and spell damage. I could have done all 3 spell damage or all 3 damage, but I did all 3. I mean, it's really hard to get all 3 level 3 gem sockets. So I just got 2 level 3s and 1 level 2, so I was kind of happy with that. And on my off catalyst, spell damage, life leech from spells, and elemental status alignment chance. That's a very must have because that's elemental status is what allows you to do freezing, and that 165% is great. Once I got that there, I saw the big jump on damage because the enemies actually started to get frozen inside of that blizzard at like almost like for 100% of the time. So as soon as I grouped them up in there, like they were not getting out until they died. My rings are pretty much base damage is critical damage, and my main focus for the rings is critical damage and all resistance score. So as long as I got those 2 in there, everything else is a bonus. I try to avoid the occult school by all means. So anything that has occult, I just sell it and dump it. I'm not interested in that because for the look of the spells, it's a total different build and a total different like sort of play style. That it's more like a how should I mention this? Kind of putting poisons and spreading poison and whatnot. And you need a special weapon, like sort of like, I guess I could use. I mean, I have a few over here that might be alright for something like that, but I mean, oh, I didn't know I had this weapon here. This could do good, but also it's not that it has a ton of damage. It's just I mean, I wish like there was a way to put sockets into this uniques, but I mean, so far I haven't seen a single one with a socket. And a socket is just, it's a must have, and especially in the weapon. Just having those 3 sockets there, I will take them over any unique time. Because I can just have spray damage pouring into the target versus having just a few stats there. Alright, that's it for the video today, guys. Thank you for watching, and give it a thumbs up and comments if you guys have any. Leave it down below, and thank you. Enjoy.